Pope Francis has been in hospital since February 14th, first with pneumonia, and has remained there this long following some minor complications. He is 88 years old after all. All his engagements, masses, general audiences, and Angelus addresses have been cancelled, although all the texts and homilies for these events have continued to be released. This is all taking place as the Jubilee year of 2025 begins, and Rome is flooded with pilgrims who have come, yes, for the Jubilee, but also to see and hear their beloved Pope. This is why, other than visiting the four major basilicas and going through the holy doors, a lot of pilgrims have been adding a visit to Gemelli Hospital to their pilgrimage. Since February 24th, the Vatican has also been hosting a daily rosary for the health of Pope Francis, led by cardinals, every night in St. Peter's Square. Both events, the rosary and the gathering outside the hospital, have become a bit like being at a general audience with the Pope. People really feel that Pope Francis has been there for us for the last 13 years, praying for us, and now it's time for us to pray for him. And the Pope has responded with words of gratitude, saying that he feels the affection and closeness, and that he feels as if he is carried and supported by all God's people. Let's continue our prayers for the Holy Father, that he will have the strength and health to continue guiding and serving the Church according to God's will. I'm Deacon Pedro, and this is the Salt and Light Hour. Hello and welcome to an all-new Salt and Light Hour. I'm Deacon Pedro, and sitting here with me is Jermaine Bagnall. Jermaine, it's good to see you. Welcome back to the program.
Always good to be back. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. And I was just looking through my notes, and I think the last time you and I spoke was Advent. Go figure. And the time
Oh,
just flies, and here we are at Lent.
yeah, there you go. You
Um,
blink and
there was
you're
a,
in and out of ordinary
there
time.
was a little bit of ordinary time in there, and now Lent. But I guess that's good. That means that, Jermaine, that means that you're not ordinary. That means that you are extraordinary. We only bring you in.
Yeah, when our priests are changing their colors.
Yes. So maybe you should start wearing violet. That's the purple that you need to be
Yeah.
wearing, Jermaine. Um, anyway, today we're going to be joined by Mark Matthews. He's our Hollywood undercover missionary, and Mark has been wanting to tell us, of course, everybody a month, 6 weeks ago, everybody's talking about the LA fires.
Mhm.
And so Mark is going to tell us what's good or what was good in Hollywood during that time of the LA fires, the fires in Hollywood. So that's going to be in about 5 minutes. Mark Matthews with what's good in Hollywood. And then Jermaine, you will be back uh, with two books. I'm assuming two books. You always do two books now. It's a thing.
Yeah, but our thing is me coming in during special liturgical seasons and bringing in two books. So I have two books, one for children and one that's a little bit different. This one for the adults is centered more around business and sales.
Oh, okay, good. Yeah. So still self-help, but business and sales. So all our business owners that are listening, maybe there's some good advice for you. Coming up with Jermaine in about 15 minutes. Book ends with Jermaine Bagnall. And then Jermaine, I mean, obviously, I was going to say, I'm a deacon, and maybe other deacons around, but I think most people are not very familiar with this whole idea of the permanent diaconate. You might see a deacon in your parish. It's a fairly new, I think, fairly fair to say that a fairly new ministry in the church, and there's really not a lot of opportunities for deacons to connect. Um, I was just telling you, and I don't think I've said to our listeners, I just came back from Rome for the Jubilee of Deacons. There were 6,000 deacons. It was this great opportunity for deacons from around the world to gather together and to kind of renew our diaconal promises,
Mhm.
actually. But other than having those supports in your own little diocese, there's very little opportunities. So there's a new organization, a new ministry called Every Day Deacon. And it's an online place for deacons to make new connections, to grow personally, to find opportunities for ongoing formation. And it's especially designed for deacons obviously, and for the wives of deacons, because we sometimes forget them about the wives. So in our second half hour, we're going to be speaking with Alex Quintana of Every Day Deacon. So that's in about 25 minutes. So any deacons or deacons' wives that are listening, I hope that you can tune in. And then we're going to be meeting a new singer-songwriter. Love it when we get to meet a new singer-songwriter. He's from Louisiana, from
Okay.
Cajun country, Louisiana. His name is Steven Joubert. And Steven has been making music and leading worship for probably close to 20 years. And he's got a few new singles that he's just released, published through Novum Records. And so we're going to be speaking with Steven Joubert in about 40 minutes. And again, if you're not going to be around, you're a deacon, you want to listen to that conversation, or you want to know about the books that Jermaine is going to talk about, but you're not going to be around because you're in the car, you got to go do stuff. Just go home and go to our website, slmedia.org. Click on podcasts. That's where you can listen to all our programs. You can also listen to the Salt and Light Hour on the Salt and Light Plus app, or you can subscribe to the podcast edition of the Salt and Light Hour wherever you get your podcasts. That's what Jermaine does, right? You get it on Apple Podcasts.
I'm an Apple Podcast type of fellow.
There you go. You can get it on YouTube Music, Google Podcasts. You can also get it on Spotify, and the show gets delivered directly to your device every Saturday. So that's an easy way to listen to the program. So, Jermaine, let's start with a song. Here's Steven Joubert with his new single, "Land of the Living."
There's a place water can't run dry. Angels tread but shadows hide. Many search but seldom find. Hey, hey, are you wandering souls? Hey, hey, are you wandering souls? Come on up to the land of the living. Come on down, saving grace. Now come on, Santa, get delivered. This is your place. Come find your resurrection. You're free from the grave. Here we heading out new beginnings. Welcome to the land of the living. There's a place flowing with new wine. Got you called by name, got you stirred inside. Path made straight with crooked lines. Hey, hey, are you wandering souls? Hey, hey, are you wandering souls? Come on up to the land of the living. Come on down, saving grace. Now come on, Santa, get delivered. This is your place. Come find your resurrection. You're free from the grave. Here we heading out new beginnings.
That was Steven Joubert with his new single, Land of the Living. And we're going to be speaking with Steven Joubert in about 35 minutes, so stay tuned. And now it's time for What's Good in Hollywood with our Hollywood undercover missionary, Mark Matthews. Mark.
Hello, Pedro.
It's good
Pleasure
to
to
see
be here.
you. Yes, it's
Thank
good
you.
to and we. I mean, I already told in the intro that you were going to speak about kind of the fires in LA, and I
Yep.
know you know, but we were all thinking about you during that time.
Thank you.
But despite the difficult time, there were still good things happening in Hollywood during the
There
LA
were.
fires.
I mean, it kind of brings people together for sure.
Yeah.
A lot outpouring of support. Like everyone was asking me if I was okay, so I felt kind of loved by that. So
Nice.
So this airing on the weekend after Ash Wednesday, I don't know if that's a little bit of a too morbid of a connection with all the extra ashes around here.
Right. Yeah.
But the concepts are linked, and there's kind of a lot of things we can draw out of that.
So are there still a lot of ashes? Like just a lot of destruction?
It was a horrible amount. Like, I mean, you probably heard some of the stats, but it was like 40,000 acres, 12,000 structures, and I mean, 29 deaths, which, thankfully is pretty low, but still, any loss of life is never good. But the craziest thing is it sort of wiped out like 2 complete neighborhoods here. And, granted, that's a small percentage of LA, but I mean, that's the size of some small cities. So, so it's, it's a little bit crazy. It really felt apocalyptic here.
Right.
I've never.
Sorry, but where you were relatively, except for the smoke, were you safe? I mean,
except
you are
from
safe.
the smoke, yeah, I was safe. I mean, we were probably like 5 or 6 miles away from the closest fire. So for it to kind of get that far into the city, it's like it would have to be really, really, really bad kind of a thing. So.
Weird.
But I mean, everybody I know knows someone who lost their home.
Really?
So, and many people I know were evacuated. Lots of people left just to avoid the smoke and the risk and whatnot. So,
Wow.
but, it really, really kind of gets you thinking about things and the meaning of life. And that's kind of what I wanted to talk a little bit more about today. Is kind of like, well, what spiritual connection can we gain from this? And honestly, it is kind of a good Lenten connection. So, like, if we look at Scripture. And we say, well, what does Scripture say about fire? Purification is the most common theme that you hear over and over.
Of course.
Like in Hebrews 12, it's let us rid ourselves of every burden and sin that clings to us, so that the genuineness of our faith more precious than gold, that is perishable, even though tested by fire, and Jesus talks about, he will clear his threshing floor and gather the wheat into his barn, but the chaff he will burn with unquenchable fire. And that's intense. Like,
Yes.
I mean, that's ultimately people and souls he's talking about. Like, if you deny God, it's like, oh my goodness, like, we're going to be burned like fire? Wow. I mean, this is not a very popular topic. It's ultimately hell, in a sense. But if you really think about it, so there's a physicist geek in me. And it's like, well, what is fire? What is heat? Well, it's increased entropy. And if we look at the universe, it's kind of, when you increase the heat, it's a way for things to change. It's a way for things to happen. And that is kind of the theme that emerges out of Scripture, is that it's God is constantly renewing and building. And so sometimes these things have to be torn down to rebuild something new and better. And so it's no surprise then that people are already talking about, like, well, how are we going to rebuild in LA? Are we going to rebuild better, than before or not?
So can I just interrupt for a second? So for the non-physicist geeks in the audience, so entropy is the idea or the theory that everything kind of is moving towards chaos or falling apart.
Well, technically, what entropy is disorder.
Yeah,
and so
yes.
So if entropy increases, disorder increases.
Right.
And so when you put more heat into a system, it increases the
disordered.
entropy. It tends to disorder it more. but yet, we see in the universe that somehow order is rebuilt over
Yeah.
time, and this is sort
Yeah.
of God's miraculous action, working through nature. Now, I'm not saying it's non-physical or non-understandable, but
Mhm.
he is constantly rebuilding the world.
It is very much, and I mean the idea of out of the ashes, or the phoenix. That's not. I mean, it's not a coincidence because literally new life comes
Yeah,
out of after
comes
forest fires, etc. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, comes out of the fire, and things are purified by fire. Like the
yeah, yeah.
connection with metal, purification. So if I had a meditation then about the fire, I would say meditate on two scenarios, and this is the question that's really easy to ask yourself now, especially for it being so close to us, and that is that if fire destroyed absolutely all of my possessions and everything around me, what would I do? And that's something that's really worth taking the time to think through, talking to people who have lost their homes, and and it's an interesting thing to walk through. It's funny because there's kind of a geek in me, the geek,
Yeah.
being very common here, is kind of goes, oh man, I hope all my files are backed up into the cloud, like, oh, I wouldn't want to lose all my files, and it's like a lot of us, I think, could do without our material possessions. And quite often, I think when I've asked this question to people are like, oh, I would feel like a weight is lifted. I sometimes
Yeah,
feel
it's
like
like a
my material
freedom.
possessions kind of just spend too much time,
Yeah.
weighing them down. And then the other question is, if fire destroyed me, what would I do?
Mm.
And it makes me think of this film, Melancholia, 2011. It's a film about a rogue planet destroying the Earth. And don't watch it. It's a film from Lars von Trier. It's incredibly depressing. It has this very bleak worldview, but it does a very good portrayal of what would happen if the Earth ended. And just kind of like life going on, it's vignettes of life, but then also like, wow, this planet destroys everything. And this is something we are called on, as Christians to very much think about. Like, our life is finite, our true home, our true eternity is heaven, not weighed down by a body. And so we kind of want to make sure that our soul is backed up into the cloud, the heavenly cloud.
Good one. Yeah.
Yeah. So that would, I mean, if there's any takeaways for me, it's just meditate on those things, because there's a lot you can draw out of that. It's a good place for spiritual growth. So
Absolutely. Fire can be good. There's new life always that comes out, new life that always comes out. And we never know. I mean, you were fine one day and the next day you would have had to evacuate.
Yeah. Totally. Could have been ashes floating through the air,
exactly,
lighting houses on fire.
Exactly. So we never know. So I like the analogy of backing up our souls on the cloud. All right. Thank you, Mark. We're glad you're safe, and that I'm glad that the fires are over and that the community is able to rebuild, and usually that's a good thing.
Yeah, hopefully, I think we're out of the woods for wildfires this season. So
out of the wildfires, out of the woods, no pun intended.
Wildfire woods.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Good to see you again, and happy.
Likewise.
Good reflection as we enter the Lenten season.
I think, very appropriate, seems like.
Mark Matthews is our Hollywood undercover missionary with what's good in Hollywood, what was good in Hollywood during the LA fires. You can follow Mark at HU Missionary.
Hi, this is John Dawson. You are listening to the Salt and Light Hour with Deacon Pedro.
You can watch Salt and Light Television and listen to the Salt and Light Hour on our streaming platform, Salt and Light Plus, SL Plus. Find out how to subscribe at slmedia.org. And now it's time for Book Ends with Jermaine Bagnall. Jermaine, welcome back. Looking at your books. He's just looking at his notes, looking at these amazing books, one for children and one for salespeople, business people.
I'd say sales. I'd say business along those lines.
Yeah.
But they actually do have a linkage. So we'll dive into the children's book first.
The linkage for children who are salespeople.
Well, I don't have children yet, but from what I understand, the young ones are always trying to sell you on why they should have ice cream for dinner.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And sometimes they're right.
Sometimes they are right. So the first one is called What Do You Do with a Problem? It's written by Kobe Yamada and is illustrated by May Bessam. They are co-creators of another best-selling book called What Do You Do with an Idea? So they have a bit of a theme of very inspirational children's books.
Right.
And this one, it's really all about for children learning how to look at problems. So the artwork in this, I think it's sort of like watercolory or pencil crayon. I'm not, or a bit of a mix.
Okay.
Forgive me, May, if you are listening to this. I love the art. I just do not have the verbiage to properly describe it.
Right. Beautiful art. Yes.
Beautiful art. It's beautiful. And the little boy walking along, his problem is in the shape of a dark cloud. So picture, those old school cartoons. And the more this little boy thinks about the problem, worries about the problem, this cloud gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and until he actually develops the courage to face it.
Okay.
And it shows that when we have problems, that the more we think about it, the more sometimes we could just make it a bigger deal than it actually is. But it also does a really good job of showing and teaching children that once you face a problem and you take some action to look at the problem, that there's a great reward. Even in the book, it says every problem has an opportunity for something good. You just have to look for it. And what I like of how they lay it out is the art changes. It goes from very desaturated and subtle to now you get this burst of color. So even if you're reading this to a really young child, just visually they'll get it. And what I love about this is that it is a great opportunity for catechesis of a child to really introduce them to scripture, because it shows the taking in action, but also teaching children that when you keep Jesus at the center, that can be their great source to overcoming their problems, So
nice.
That's not what's stated in the book, but as Catholics reading it, it's a beautiful thing. We have the ability to see the world with our worldview and be able to incorporate these amazing lessons like this from within this book.
Okay, nice. I like the idea of the color, that as you have problems, things are kind of desaturated, gray, and as you get to solve your problem, there's more color in your life. What a great idea. So what do you do with a problem by Kobe Yamada, illustrated by May Bessam, and it's published by Compendium 2016.
Yes. So a little bit older.
Yeah.
And so for this one, the linkage, when we have problems, we're looking for solutions.
Yeah.
And this book by Ashley Welch and Justin Jones is called Naked Sales: How Design Thinking Reveals Customer Motives and Drives Revenue.
Okay.
For all the listeners, understand that they use the term naked sales to emphasize transparency, authenticity, and stripping away unnecessary sales tactics.
Yes.
It's nothing illicit. I would definitely not present something like that on bookends, nor link it to a children's book.
No, absolutely. Yes, good. Transparent sales. I like that.
Transparent sales, exactly. So I've always been curious about this methodology called design thinking. And it's really all about iteration. It's really all about asking questions. And so within this book by Welch and Jones, they emphasize three parts of the sales process. So discovery, insight, acceleration. So discovery is the idea of using curiosity and tools like observation and listening, deep dive interviews, that sort of thing, to work with your client to find out what their needs are. Because often when you run a business, it's easy to see every problem with one solution. So you have a hammer in your tool belt, so everything looks like a nail. But
Right.
that's not always the case. When you actually have discussion, and the insight they speak of is using empathy to understand the organization you're working with, their values, their challenges, the culture, that sort of thing. So it's a lot of discussion and really using observation to kind of figure out what it is that they need. And then the idea of acceleration is co-creating solutions with your client. And
Okay.
and these sort of seem basic, but I guess that's the genius in the use of design thinking. It's just, asking questions,
Right.
and using that as your baseline. So any Catholic business owner who provides a service or good, I think that this would be really handy for them. But also, I think there's great applicability outside of running your business. So if you're asking questions on how you can improve things, maybe we apply it to our parish. So
Oh, okay.
often often it's quite typical for everybody to go to their Sunday mass, and that's it. And obviously that's great, but what does it look like if you want to develop and implement a program, or develop and implement some sort of a new culture there? And it's looking around at your parish with fresh eyes. It's speaking to the lay people, speaking to the religious, and trying to figure out, okay, how can we better serve our community? How can we better serve our those who attend, and developing solutions. So maybe it's something as simple, hey, we have a lot of new people, but nobody's really getting together. And we have a basement. Why don't we have refreshments after mass? Something simple like that. Or
Interesting. Yeah.
yeah. So I think there's great applicability to not just your Catholic business or something like that. I think it's very applicable
Yeah.
in our local parishes too.
That's interesting. So just to clarify, so it's not a Catholic book, but
It's
but a lot of the principles obviously apply to everyone. Because, but I had not thought of how it could apply to a parish, and that's every pastor runs a business in a way. I mean, we might
Mhm.
not be looking at revenue in terms of dollars, but we're looking at revenue in terms of, evangelizing, mission, bringing people into the church, or going out to do our mission. So
Mhm.
what a great idea for our leaders in the church to learn a bit about design thinking, maybe, and how
Mhm.
that could help us in our mission of being church. Okay, so Naked Sales: How Design Thinking Reveals Customer Motives and Drives Revenue by Ashley Welch and Justin Jones, and that's published by Lion Crest. Also a little older, 2017, but always relevant. And the first book, for a reminder, was What Do You Do with a Problem by Kobe Yamada and May Bessam, published by Compendium 2016. Jermaine, thank you. Always good to see you, and always appreciate your good suggestions here for parents, for children, and for everyone else.
Yes, it's always a pleasure. Love sharing them and love diving into new books. It's my excuse to constantly buy new books.
Absolutely. Always reading. Jermaine Bagnall, always reading. Our book contributor, Jermaine Bagnall. He's also the producer of the Salt and Light production Working in Faith. You can watch that on our website, slmedia.org, and you can follow him at Jermaine Bagnall. Coming up in our second half hour, Everyday Deacon, and we meet singer-songwriter Steven Joubert. So stay tuned. Welcome to the Salt and Light Hour Part 2. I'm Deacon Pedro. Most deacons I know would agree that it's not always easy to find good resources for us. Resources on the diaconate, resources for the wives of deacons. Even sometimes, it's not very easy to find a lot of support outside your own small circle of deacons in your diocese. The truth is that the permanent diaconate is still fairly new in the church, and we are, all of us, including deacons, still trying to figure it out. It is because of this that the folks at a platform called Sanctified decided to create a place where deacons can meet, where they can find community and resources, ongoing formation, and prayer. That is the mission of Everyday Deacon. And to tell us more, I am now joined by co-founder Alex Quintana. Alex, welcome to the Salt and Light Hour. It's good to see you.
Yeah, it's great to see you again, Deacon
Yes.
Pedro. Nice to have you welcoming me on this platform as opposed to you joining us recently.
Exactly,
to our
on
community.
Everyday Deacon. So I'm going to start off just like the total disclaimer. You are not a deacon. You're not a permanent deacon.
I'm not a deacon.
So
no.
where did this inspiration come from?
Yeah, so with my co-founder Matthew, we've been trying to figure out how to serve the church through technology by kind of updating the tools we have at our disposal as a church, and especially starting in the event space. There's so much fruits that happen in in-person events, virtual events, and so many things that are happening throughout the church. We wanted to make those accessible and more discoverable, and that's where we began a joint venture called Sanctified together. And it's kind of evolved, and we've been developing it little by little to be an event discovery platform. And at the same time, we kind of saw this need of a community that's lacking in many areas of the church. Kind of lots of pods of activities happening, but not really a unity. And I think there's an opportunity to bring that together in the digital space as well in a community structure. And hence, we started trying to see where is there a gap in the church that's not being served well. And by talking to different people, we came up and discovered that deacons were ones that are giving so much, but they're not really receiving. Right. And so we just thought there might be a thirst there for community, ongoing formation through virtual events, which Matthew heavily and me and accompanying him come from a virtual event background. So kind of raising the experience of what a virtual event can look like. And so we said, hey, let's start by trying to serve deacons and see if we can create something that engages them, brings them ongoing formation, since they have need for ongoing formation, and that's valuable for all of us as Catholics. But there's a little bit more of an expectation for deacons. So bring deacons to speak to the hearts of deacons, or sometimes non-deacons to speak to the hearts of deacons in our events. Serving both deacons and wives.
Yeah. So I think that people would understand that, you might host events that are for deacons, formation events, or I guess ongoing formation. So is it that, or is there more than that?
It's kind of the foundation of what we're kind of offering. From like the first layer is virtual events. And so invite a speaker that is excellent in one area to speak to this topic. Often deacons are speaking to others that are not deacons. That's the most common thing, speaking at the pulpit or at retreats or whatever it may be, but they have obviously the personal experience of the diaconate. So let's bring their speaking skills to other deacons and have them just kind of cater their message to what deacons might want to hear, that they can understand being deacons. And then under that, there's a more of an interactive experience. We don't want it to just be being spoken to, which lots of events turn out to be that way. Some of our events are that, followed by Q&A. We try to incorporate in more interaction. The virtual space, Zoom, and other platforms offer breakout groups and offer polling and different ways to engage that aren't often used. But we're trying to make it more interactive and also offer member-only events that can be more engaging, more interactive, and let the dialogue happen between deacons or between wives that we're also trying to...
Right, exactly. Yeah, for deacons and their wives. I was going to ask you about membership, so I'm glad you brought it up. So how does it work?
So, the membership is, you can jump into our platform, or you can jump to our landing page, EveryDayDeacon.com, check it out. But you sign up kind of like you would for most communities. And then you have a portal that kind of takes you into our Sanctified experience. We're building in the technology onto our Sanctified platform, and we're using it with our first use case of Everyday Deacon. And on there, you can find past event recordings. You can find access to promotional partnerships that we have from Catholic brands. You can have a Q&A portal where you can chat and share questions and get answers from others in the community. And so that's kind of what the experience is for a member, and getting updates of emails and invites and things. So we encourage you guys to jump into the membership. And we also offer the free events mostly
Okay.
monthly at this point. So that's where we kind of bring in a lot more viewership.
I understand. So there are events. So there are benefits to become a member, but there are also some events that are free that anybody who's not a member can also join.
Yeah, and the goal of the membership is you can, however many deacons there are, there's probably about 15,000 deacons that are kind of active right now in the country.
In the United States,
we also
yeah.
do,
Yeah.
into the U.S. since this could be heard internationally. To clarify, and we do have some deacons that are coming from other countries, lots from Canada.
Yes,
you
good.
yourself, and
Yes.
others from Australia, and we've had
Nice.
members, or we've had attendees to our events from across the world, which is really great. We've had over 1,600 unique registrants, and any given event probably has between
Wonderful.
100 and 600 registrants. So
Yeah.
we're excited to see those numbers. And the portal gives you access to view the past recordings, since a lot of people can't make it.
Right.
Kind of becomes a video on demand experience.
Yeah. Okay, so then that makes sense that it's an online platform, obviously, so that you can reach more people across the country, across the continent, and even other continents that can join. The recordings make sense because the people from Australia are probably always,
It's a little tough.
it's always in the middle of the night for them. So this might seem like a silly question, but do you have to be a deacon to become a member?
Yes. You do
Okay.
need to be a deacon in formation
Or
for the
information.
diaconate. Mhm.
Okay.
Kind of in your process, and not just discerning, but be on the
Be
path
actually-
already. Yeah.
Now, can you give us some examples? You mentioned that there are some, speaker events. What kinds of topics or what kinds of events would you host for the deacons and or for their wives?
Yeah, so some of our past events, for example, with you, we heard on the art of preaching, a preaching masterclass. So we brought you in to speak to that, and people really liked that.
Excellent. That was the best one, right?
It really was. It really was a great experience, and we realized that's a topic people really want.
Yes, of
want to
course.
hear.
Yeah.
And we have other ones like healthy pastor relationships. Common struggle
Okay,
with
yeah, also
Deacon Charlie
very common.
Echeverry. He gave
Yeah.
that one. We've had Deacon Dominic Serrato talk about the origins of the diaconate. It's kind of more of a historic overview
Okay.
of the diaconate. We had At the Altar and in the Culture with Deacon James Keating. We've had Deacon Larioni. We've had Deacon Bob Rice. We've had a lot of great speakers that are really experts in the faith in general, but each one of them kind of does go into little niches, and we kind of get feedback. What do you guys want to speak about?
Right.
And also, what does our audience ask for? Because we've asked our audience multiple occasions, what do you want to hear?
Yeah.
And we try to kind of find the balance between our audience's desires and the speaker's skill sets and desires as well.
Right. And but not all the speakers are deacons necessarily, although the majority have
At
been.
this point, they've been mostly, or we've had
Mostly.
wives of deacons
Nice.
speak as well to other deacons. Kind of like we went on a little journey with Barb Kralik. She's a wife of a deacon, and we kind of did a journey with the Holy Family leading up to Christmas
nice.
time.
Yeah.
But we have had a couple, Dr. Bob Schutz. He's not a deacon, but he speaks.
Okay.
Often to deacons. Kind of comes from a psychology background and spoke about strengthening your marriage.
Okay,
So
yeah.
trying to speak. He knows the heart of a deacon through serving them often, and so he kind of came in and spoke on our last event.
Yeah, sounds good. So some events are for deacons, some for wives, some for both. And it's as easy as just going to the platform, everydaydeacon.com, and just checking it out,
Yeah.
subscribing, or just trying out some free events and see if you see if it's something that would work for you.
Yeah,
I guess, right?
All of our free events are accessible at everydaydeacon.com. And so you can sign up for the free events, register, and then you'll be updated with future events as well. And if you want to jump into the membership, we invite you to do so, and hopefully engage deeper with other deacons or wives of deacons.
I think that there's a beauty, like I keep saying, like we deacons have support in their diocese, usually with a small group, but I mean, to have access to 16,000 deacons from across the country, across the world, is a beautiful thing. I was saying earlier, I just came back from the Jubilee of Deacons in Rome. There were 6,000 deacons at that event, so that was meaningful to be able to renew our diaconal promises with 6,000 other brother deacons. Was very intense.
Yeah,
and
I think
beautiful.
you also get every diocese gives its own experience
Yeah,
of the diaconate,
exactly.
the way they get formed, the way they interact
Exactly.
after formation. So you get
Exactly.
to kind of cross-pollinate the
Exactly.
skills and the understanding
Yeah,
and
yeah.
community.
Yeah, because it's a little hit or miss across from diocese to another. All right, Alex, thank you so much for for starting the ministry and for telling us about it. And I hope that there's lots of deacons listening and that they're going to go check it out and join in. Thank you very much,
so
Alex.
much,
Good to
Deacon
see
Pedro.
you.
Great to see you as well.
Alex Quintana is the co-founder of Every Day Deacon. You can just go to that website, everydaydeacon.com, to learn more and find out how to join. Here now is Steven Joubert with his new single, House of the Lord.
Over the long day, a sweat upon my brow. Where can I escape to hide from the heat and the plow? Over the hard times, when I weather all my doubt, where can I run to? Where can I run? Take me to the house of the Lord, where I was born again, where I'm restored again. Take me to the house of the Lord. No greater love than this, no greater love than Him. And take me to the house of the Lord. When life is a fast lane, with all the lights and screens and sounds, where can I slow it down? Where does it slow down? Take me to the house of the Lord, where I was born again, where I'm restored again. Take me to the house of the Lord. No greater love than this, no greater love than His. He leads me a right path for the sake of His name. Your rod and your staff, they bring me comfort, they give me strength. Surely goodness, surely mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, all the days.
We're listening to Steven Joubert with his new single, House of the Lord. Steven Joubert is originally from Louisiana and began leading worship at age 19. After playing with a band for several years, he finally went solo. In 2014, his album, The Entrance, was released by St. Mary's Press as part of their Called to Mercy program. His second EP, titled Pride and Joy, followed in 2018, through which Stephen continued to grow and explored the life of joy that one can experience when we die to Christ. Now, Stephen has released a few new singles which really show a music blend steeped in Southern culture that has become truly Steven Joubert. And so to tell us more, I'm now joined by Steven Joubert. Stephen, welcome to the Salt and Light Hour. It's good to meet you.
Yo, thank you so much, Deacon Pedro. Appreciate it. Happy to be here.
So I knew that you were from Louisiana. I recently found out that you've moved to Wisconsin. So that's like completely like the other end of the country.
Yeah.
But, tell us a little bit about growing up in Cajun country.
Oh man, it was great. South Louisiana is a special place. It's got lots of culture. Cajun culture is just awesome. It's very Catholic. It's just kind of steeped into the everything. You know what I mean? Your Mardi Gras. It's just kind of all in it. Everybody and their mom is Catholic, at least Christian.
Okay.
And it's just kind of the assumption, that you're Catholic and you go to church and you.
Right. Right. And my sense is that it's also very musical.
Oh yeah, for sure. For sure. One of my favorite things growing up, especially, so I went to college at the University of Louisiana at Lafayette.
Yeah.
So I went to college in my hometown, and I was heavily involved in the Catholic Student Center over there. And one of my favorite things was we'd go to 6 p.m. Mass, and then after Mass, we'd go to this Cajun restaurant called Randall's, and we go Cajun dancing. So there would be this Cajun band playing, and we're, dancing and having a good time. I mean, so yeah, music is in the culture, Catholicism,
In the culture, yeah.
food. I mean, it's great.
That's wonderful, wonderful. So I'm not going to ask you why you moved to Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Are you from a big family? Do you have brothers and sisters?
I've got an older brother. He's 3 years older than me, and then there's a big gap between me and my younger sister. So me and my younger sister are about 13 years apart. And so but I was the baby for a long time. I've got some youngest child energy, as people tell me.
That's good energy. Good energy to have.
That was my life for a little while.
Yeah. Did you? It was a musical household. Did you have to take music lessons? When did you start playing guitar?
Yeah, so I started playing guitar in 8th grade, which is wild, because the public school that I went to, my middle school, just kind of happened to offer it as a class you could take instead of taking band or art or whatever. They happened to have a guitar class. And at that time, my older brother was really into music, and he was trying to start a band, and he was like, "You're learning to play guitar, you be our guitar player." So I was in a band before I even knew how to play guitar.
That's funny.
And then took 1 year of guitar, and then pretty much self-taught kind of beyond that. I took a music theory class in high school, which was really cool. And that is kind of where my songwriting and stuff really started to kind of pick up. I was already trying to write songs at that point, but it like the rhyme or reason why I was doing certain things made more sense,
Yeah. And were you playing, did you ever do music in church? Was that part of the high school time?
Whenever, the funniest thing is when I was first learning how to play guitar, I really liked to play rock and roll stuff. It was the 2000s, so I really liked the punk emo rock music stuff. Yeah. And I thought church music was pretty boring. So I didn't play a lot of church music. It wasn't until I got into college and I was kind of introduced into the kind of praise and worship stuff that I started to kind of grow an appreciation for it. And then I started, playing music for retreats and things like that.
Right. So that's when you started leading worship, and you were just, were you already in college, or that was before college?
That was in college.
Yeah, that was during college. And so you played, I understand you played with a band for a while as well.
So the band that I was in college, we started my senior year of high school, and we were pretty much together for my whole college career. Did a lot of traveling and playing music, and it was crazy because it kind of morphed over time, because it was we played punk emo music, but we were Catholic.
But your music now, I would not describe it as emo punk.
No, not at all.
Right?
Yeah.
So what changed? How would you describe your music now?
Yeah, I would call it probably a kind of a Southern Americana rock, it still has some rock flair in there. But I definitely Southern blues, Americana, some gospel in there,
Yeah, it's a good blend of,
Yeah, and I think part of it was I've always been under the guise of just art should be fun. It should be exciting. It should be interesting. I think music is fun when I'm stretching myself. And so for me, there was this sort of idea that I wanted to play a kind of music that kind of resonated with my personal history. It's I wanted to find, because I went from being in a band into being me, myself. Whereas in a band, you've got this band identity. And so then I wanted to write music, though, that was what does Steven Joubert sound like? What do I sound like? What is my art, And that's whenever I really just started kind of randomly, really digesting a lot of just Southern music.
Okay.
Just anything that was kind of made in the American South. Stuff that kind of originated there. And at the same time, I also became very obsessed with Flannery O'Connor, the Southern Gothic author.
Yes.
And
Wow.
that really got me kind of just thinking about, like what is this whole kind of Southern art form kind of thing. And I like the fact that it kind of almost stands in contrast to the kind of high ecclesiology of our church, if that makes any sense. Like as Catholics, we have a very rich intellectual tradition, and it's very robust and a very rich artistic history, that all feels very high, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's all very elevated, and I love kind of the not elevated sound of like kind of Southern, kind of almost like not to be too crass or anything, but kind of like Southern hick culture. You know what I mean? Like there's something earthy and grounded and almost just simple.
Yeah, it's true.
That I think when you kind of inject it with the richness of the Christian tradition, I think it's wonderful contrast.
Yeah. Interesting.
So I think, and that's part of the fun again, is like, I think art should be fun. And I think contrasting pieces are fun. Like if you've got a song that's very dark, I love a good, major turnaround in the song where it's like we've spent all this time in the muck and mire, and then we've got this elevated finish, or things.
Right.
The juxtaposition between opposites, I think, are just so interesting and compelling in art. And so that's I think it's just another one of those things for me where it's like you've got the rich history of our Christian tradition kind of imbued in this this Southern tradition of music that does have a lot of Christianity in it, obviously. And kind of bringing those kind of worlds together is just a lot of fun.
Yeah, it is. It is a lot of fun, and it's also very homey. There's just something about our tradition that we need to feel at home, and I think your music does that, Steven.
Thank you.
Yeah, it does. It does. Thank you for the music and for coming onto the program today to tell us about it. It's great to connect with you. I've been hearing about you for a while now, so it's good to finally get you on the program. And I look forward to more music so that we can get you back on the show.
Oh yeah, that'd be awesome. This has been just a real treat. So yeah, anytime I get to kind of nerd out and talk about music with somebody,
come back and talk about Flannery O'Connor.
Yeah, let's do it.
Take care, Steven. A pleasure meeting you, and thank you again. God bless.
Yeah, thank you, Deacon. Take care.
You can learn more about Steven Joubert at his website, stevenjoubert.com, and it's Joubert, Joubert, stevenjoubert.com, and you can also find Steven's music wherever you stream your music. If you missed any part of this interview, you can head over to our website, slmedia.org/podcast, and all our programs are archived there. Here now to take us out is Steven Joubert with his new single, All God's People.
Have you been down to the river? Oil and water on your skin. Try to remember just who you are and where you've been. 'Cause if you got the Spirit flowing in your veins, let me hear you sing it, yeah, let me hear you sing it. If you got the Spirit flowing in your veins, let me hear you sing it out in Jesus' name. Oh, God's people got a little power, they got power. Oh, God's people sing a little louder, sing it louder. 'Cause if you believe it, just show me what you got, show me so we can see it. Oh, God's people, they got a little. time to remember. It's time to remember just who's you are and who you're supposed to be. Yeah. If you got the Spirit flowing in your veins, let me hear you sing it out. Jesus' name. Oh, God's people got a little power. They got power. Oh, God's people sing a little louder. Say it louder. 'Cause if you believe it, just show me what you got. Show me so we can see it. Oh, God's people, they got a little. They got a little. We shall overcome 'cause He has overcome now. We shall overcome.
We're listening to Steven Joubert with his new single, All God's People, and that will take us to the end of our program today. Listen to the full show on our website, slmedia.org, or on the Salt and Light Plus app, SL Plus, or subscribe to the podcast edition of the Salt and Light Hour anywhere you get your podcasts and get the show delivered right to your device. This week, let's continue to pray for peace in Ukraine and peace in the Holy Land. Let's also pray for children who are learning to solve problems and for business owners and salespeople. Let's pray for all the victims of the LA fires as they rebuild out of the ashes. And let's pray for all permanent deacons and their wives. Finally, we pray for Pope Francis that he may continue to have the strength to lead the church according to God's will. And I pray that you have a blessed beginning of Lent. I'm Deacon Pedro, and this has been the Salt and Light Hour.